Before we begin, drop a comment below with your country and what time it is right now where you're watching. Whether it's sunrise in Nairobi, midnight in New York, afternoon in Canada, or evening in France, I want to know. Don't just sit back. Tell me where in the world you are. Now, let's dive into the story. The humiliation burns hotter than the silver chains biting into her wrists, the kind of pain that crawls under the skin and refuses to leave. Elowen Vale stands in the center of the stone courtyard as rain slashes down, mud soaking the hem of her threadbare coat. Wolves circle her, tall, broad-shouldered, eyes glowing like embers, watching, judging, waiting. At the highest step stands Cale Thorne, alpha of the Blackridge Pack, her sworn enemy, the man who destroyed her family's name. His dark hair is plastered to his forehead, his jaw hard as carved stone. When his gaze meets hers, there is no mercy there, only disgust. The crowd roars as he lifts his hand, signaling silence, and Elowen's stomach knots. This is how it ends, she thinks. Public disgrace. Final punishment. The moon hides behind clouds, but its pull hums through her bones, restless and wrong. Cale steps forward, boots splashing, voice cold as winter iron. By dawn, he says, this traitor will be dealt with. The word traitor echoes, crushing. Elowen lifts her chin anyway, refusing to beg. She won't give him that satisfaction. She never has. The chains jerk tight as guards shove her to her knees, and the memory crashes in, sharp and unwanted, of a different night, years ago, before hatred ruled everything. Back then, the forest had felt like home. Pine and damp earth, firelight flickering between trunks, laughter carrying through the dark. Elowen had been younger, braver in the reckless way only the unbroken can be. Her father's hand had rested warm on her shoulder as elders spoke of alliances and old promises. Across the fire, Kel had stood silent, not yet. Alpha, eyes watchful, shoulders already carrying too much weight. She remembers thinking he looked lonely, even then. The thought had startled her. Enemies were supposed to be monsters, not men who stared into flames like they were searching for answers. That night ended in blood, a scream, a body on the ground, accusations hurled like knives. By morning, Elowen's family was branded, hunted, scattered. By nightfall, Cale Thorne was her enemy, crowned in grief and rage. The memory fades as thunder cracks overhead, dragging her back to the present, where forgiveness is a language no one speaks anymore. A shout pulls Elowen's focus. A scout bursts through the crowd, breathless, rain-slicked hair wild. "Alpha," he calls, urgency slicing the air. Cale turns, irritation flashing. The scout drops to one knee, whispers fast. Terrified words. Elowen can't hear them, but she feels the shift, the tightening of the pack, the way every wolf suddenly looks to the sky. The clouds thin. Moonlight spills down in a silver flood, striking Elowen like a blow. Pain explodes through her chest, knocking the breath from her lungs. She gasps, arching against the chains as heat and light tear through her veins. The wolves howl, some in awe, some in fear. Cale spins back toward her, shock cracking his mask. His eyes blaze as the air hums, ancient and undeniable. Elowen screams as something answers the moon inside her, something she never knew was there. The chains glow, then snap apart like brittle twigs, clattering to the stones. Silence slams down, heavy and stunned. Cale takes one slow step forward, voice raw. "That's impossible." Elowen staggers to her feet, heart hammering, every sense on fire. She smells the rain sharper now, hears the frantic beat of hearts all around her, feels the moon's pull like a hand on her spine. Fear wars with wonder. This can't be happening. She's human. She's always been human, or so she thought. Murmurs ripple through them. Pack, old legends, forbidden bonds, bloodlines lost to time. Cale's gaze locks onto her, not with hatred now, but something far more dangerous. Recognition. He swallows hard, jaw flexing, as if fighting an invisible force. The moon climbs higher, and with it, the truth snaps into place. Brutal and unyielding, the bond slams into them both, a sudden, blazing connection that steals Elowen's breath. She feels him, his anger, his grief, his iron control, cracking under the weight of it. Cale grips the hilt of his blade like it's the only thing anchoring him to himself. No, he growls, more to the sky than to her. Anyone but her? The words cut deeper than any knife, even as the bond tightens, sealing their fates together. The elders begin shouting, arguing, panic rising as old laws collide with living reality. Elowen sways, overwhelmed, the world tilting. Cale is suddenly there, catching her before she falls, his hands hot, through the wet fabric of her coat. The contact sends a shock through them both. For a heartbeat, everything goes quiet. The crowd, the storm, the past. Elowen looks up into his face, so close now she can see the cracks in his armor, the pain he's buried for years. "You still hate me," she whispers, voice shaking. Cale's grip tightens, as if letting go would shatter him. His answer is low, torn. "Yes." Then, softer, like a confession he never wanted to make. And the moon doesn't care. Around them, the pack waits, breath held. The bond hums, relentless, ancient, alive. Elowen realizes, with a cold, sinking certainty, that her execution has just become something far worse. She hasn't been spared. She's been claimed. And the man holding her is the same one who once swore to destroy everything she is. Kyle releases Elowen at dawn, not out of kindness but necessity, ordering her confined to the old watchtower overlooking Blackridge Gorge. The storm has passed, leaving the world scrubbed raw, stone slick, air sharp with pine and wet iron. As guards escort her, whispers chase them like insects, legends muttered through teeth. Elowen walks barefoot, borrowed cloak heavy on her shoulders, heart thudding to a rhythm that is no longer hers alone. Each step pulls at the invisible thread tying her to Kyle, a tug she feels in her ribs, in her breath. Memories flicker, his hands steadying her, the shock in his eyes, and she hates herself for remembering their warmth. In the tower, iron bars bite shadows into the floor. Cale arrives alone, alpha authority rigid as armor. He does not meet her gaze. "This changes nothing," he says, voice controlled, brittle. "You will be examined. The elders will decide." Elowen laughs once, thin and tired. "They already did," she replies. "They chose you." The bond pulses, sharp as a warning. Silence settles, heavy, while the gorge yawns below, reminding them both that falling is easy, and climbing back requires hands willing to bleed together, despite fear and ancient laws. Examination comes as memory, not touch. The elders question Elowen through the bars, eyes pale, voices careful, circling truths like hunters. She answers simply, "Childhood scenes stitched with loss. The night her father fell, the vow Kyle swore over bloodied stones, the years surviving by wit and silence." With every word, the bond hums, translating her fear into his chest miles away. Cale stands with the council later, fists clenched behind his back, listening as scholars argue bloodlines and moons. A map is unrolled, creased and old, marking crossings where worlds once mingled. Enemy lines blur. An elder murmurs. Cale snaps. "She's not a symbol." The words surprise him. Night falls. Elowen presses her palm to the cold bars, feeling him there, distant yet close, anger braided with restraint. She whispers his name before stopping herself. The moon answers instead, washing the tower in silver, awakening instincts she never trained. She breathes through the surge, choosing stillness. Survival taught her that power unused can be power kept. Outside, wolves patrol in widening circles, senses stretch thin, while secrets ripple outward, promising consequences that will not wait for mercy or mourning beneath cold clouds and watchful cliffs. Fate tightens quietly around them both tonight without warning. Morning brings a pattern break, speed and steel. Raiders breach the eastern ridge, smoke staining the sky. Horns blare. Kale moves, command slicing chaos into order, sending squads with crisp gestures. The Bond yanks Elowen awake, pain flashing bright. She knows where he is without seeing, knows when a blade glances his shoulder. Ignoring orders, she slips the bars during the confusion, instincts guiding her feet through alleys and roots. She reaches the ridge as wolves clash, fur and armor blurring. A raider lunges at Kyle's blind side. Elowen shouts, throws a stone, distracts him long enough for Kale to strike. The raider falls. Kale turns, fury and relief colliding. You should be locked away, he snaps. You saved me. She fires back, breathless. The Bond thrums approval. Together they fight back to back, distrust welded by necessity. When the last horn fades, the cost lies quiet on the ground, and Kale realizes enemies now know Elowen matters. This victory changes nothing and everything, because courage seen cannot be unseen, and Kale's pack watches her with new eyes, weighing fear against gratitude, counting debts that blood will demand. Silence spreads as bodies are carried home slowly under gray skies and cold wind. Afterward, quiet sharpens. Elowen is returned to the tower, but the bars feel thinner now. Kale visits at dusk, bringing bandages and an apology he refuses to name. He cleans her scraped knuckles with careful hands, touch restrained, eyes haunted. Why risk yourself? He asks. She shrugs. I was there. He almost smiles. Almost. He admits the vow he swore was born, from grief and lies fed by rivals. She admits she has carried his hatred like a stone, shaping her spine around it. The Bond listens, easing, then tightens again as the moon rises. Kyle warns her of elders who will exploit her, of packs who will hunt a bonded weakness. Elo encounters with a plan to train, to learn control. He refuses, then pauses, then nods once. Trust inches forward, not as forgiveness, but as strategy. When he leaves, the tower no longer feels like a cage. It feels like a crossroads. Outside, the gorge exhales mist, stars pricking open the dark, and Elowen understands choice is arriving faster than fear, demanding courage shaped by patience, not rage. Tomorrow will test that resolve without mercy. From allies and enemies alike, pressure mounts at every border under watchful eyes. Night closes Chapter 2 with a promise of escalation. Elowen dreams of running. Paws striking earth, wind singing her name, then wakes human and shaking. Kale stands on the battlements, feeling her fear like an echo, choosing vigilance over sleep. Elders convene by candlelight, drafting decrees that will bind or break them both. Far off, rival packs scent opportunity, sharpening knives and smiles. The Bond hums, not gentle now, but urgent, pulling two enemies onto a single road. They have not forgiven. They have not forgotten, but they have fought together, bled near together, and survived the telling. As clouds thin, moonlight spills again, and with it comes a truth neither can deny. The next test will demand a choice that turns strategy into sacrifice. When dawn comes, Elowen will step forward, not as a prisoner, but as a participant in her fate, and Kale will have to decide whether enemies can become something stronger before the world tears them apart. The camera lingers on the horizon, breath held, as drums begin somewhere unseen, counting down to consequences that will reshape Blackridge and the hearts bound to it. This is only the beginning, and everyone feels it deep inside their bones right now here. The elders summon Elowen at first light, a deliberate choice meant to remind her who controls time itself. She walks into the council hall alone, boots echoing against polished stone, sunlight slicing through high windows to catch dust in the air. 12 elders sit in a crescent, faces carved by years of command and compromise. Kale stands apart, arms crossed, posture rigid, the distance between them measured and intentional. The lead elder speaks without warmth. The bond is real, dangerous, rare. Elowen keeps her spine straight, hands calm at her sides. So am I. she answers. A murmur ripples. They accuse without saying the words. Deception, infiltration, destiny bent like a blade. Cale interrupts once, sharp and final, when an elder implies execution. Silence slams down. The ruling lands instead. Elowin will train under watch, learn control, and remain within Blackridge. Any failure, any loss of restraint, will be punished. Elowin accepts because refusal would be a lie. The bond hums approval, low and steady. Cale meets her eyes briefly, something like respect, flickering before the mask returns. Outside, the pack waits, judging. Inside, a clock starts ticking that will not slow for mercy or fear. Training begins where the forest thins into rock, a place that exposes mistakes. Cale assigns a quiet warrior named Bran to oversee drills, his gaze cautious but fair. Elowin learns to listen to her breath, to the moon's echo under skin, to the bond's pull without letting it steer. She stumbles, falls, rises again. Bruises bloom. Sweat stings her eyes. Wolves watch from the tree line, curiosity wrestling suspicion. Cale observes from a distance, correcting with clipped words, refusing to touch. When the moon rises at noon's edge, a rare thinning of clouds, power surges, sharp and intoxicating. Elowin nearly loses herself, vision narrowing, instinct screaming. Cale steps in, voice a tether. Stay with me, Rahaki, he commands, then catches himself. Stay. She does. The moment passes. Later, alone, Cale admits to Bran that control like that takes years. Elowin did it in minutes. Fear creeps in where admiration should be. Gifts invite envy. Envy invites knives. The forest listens. Wine threading warnings through needles as unseen eyes take notes and plan their next move carefully. The first betrayal comes quietly. Supplies vanish. A guard forgets a post. Rumors slither. Elowin is a spy, a curse, a weapon aimed inward. Cale hears them all, jaw tight, choosing restraint. Elowin feels the shift through the bond, the sour taste of distrust spreading. She confronts him at the river, water roaring between stones. You don't believe them, she says, not asking. Kyle looks away. Belief isn't the problem, he replies. Protection is. He assigns her quarters closer to the keep. Tighter watch. Fewer freedoms. She bristles, then understands. Safety shaped like a cage. That night, a blade skims her ribs in the dark, thrown from shadow. It misses by inches. Wolves flood the path. The attacker escapes. Cale arrives seconds later, fury uncoiled. He grips her shoulders, checks her breathing, his restraint cracking. This ends, he vows. Elowin meets his eyes, steady despite shaking hands. No, she says. It escalates. The bond thrums, agreement forged in fear and clarity. Someone wants her gone. Someone close enough to try again. They set a trap, with truth instead of bait. Cale announces Elowin will be sent away at dusk, escorted lightly, a calculated lie that spreads fast. Elowin hates the waiting more than the danger. She sharpens senses, keeps fear folded tight. At the gorge crossing, shadows move where none should. Steel flashes, wolves surge. The ambush collapses into chaos. Elowin acts without orders, channeling power into speed, knocking a masked attacker aside. The mask falls. A familiar face stares up, shocked. One of Cale's lieutenants, trusted, favored. The lieutenant's allies scatter. Khal's roar splits the night, grief and rage colliding. The traitor confesses under the weight of the pack's stare. Rival gold, promises of leadership, fear of the bond's future. Justice is swift. When it's done, the pack's gaze shifts, recalibrates. Elowin stands bloodied but unbowed. Cale addresses them, voice hoarse. Harm her. You answer to me. The words settle like law. Elowin feels the bond soften, a fragile bridge forming where war once stood, though wounds still bleed beneath the surface. After, the quiet is intimate and dangerous. Kyle and Elowin sit by a low fire, hands bandaged, sharing silence thick with what-ifs. He admits he was wrong about her father, that evidence was twisted, grief exploited. She listens, pain old and sharp, then nods once. Truth doesn't erase damage, she says, but it changes the next step. He agrees. The moon lifts, not full but insistent. The bond hums, not hunger, not command, but choice. Kale offers training personally, not as alpha, but as partner against what's coming. Elowen accepts with conditions. Transparency, trust earned daily, no cages disguised as care. He agrees. Above them, clouds part, starlight cold and clear. Far away, rival drums answer, slow and promising war. Chapter 3 closes with them standing side by side at the battlements, enemies no longer, allies not yet lovers, bound by moon and menace, choosing to face the storm together, knowing the next chapter will demand more than courage. It will demand sacrifice that tests the very meaning of power, loyalty, and the fragile hope growing between two hearts, once sworn to destroy each other. War does not announce itself with drums alone. It arrives in smaller ways first, in missing scouts, in trade routes gone silent, in the way the forest seems to hold its breath. Elowen feels it through the bond before Kale speaks the words. Pressure, direction, intent. Rival packs are moving, testing Black Ridge's edges like wolves circling a wounded elk. The elders convene again, sharper now, fear cutting through ceremony. They want Elowen hidden, removed, neutralized as a liability. Kale refuses outright voice iron. She stays where I can see her. The room fractures. Elowen steps forward, surprising them all. I won't be hidden, she says calmly. I won't be used as bait either. Silence stretches. The lead elder studies her like a blade's edge. Then you will prove your worth. The task is dangerous by design. Escort a fragile supply caravan through disputed land at dusk, when sight fails and tempers flare. Kale understands the gamble immediately. Success earns legitimacy. Failure erases her. Elowen accepts before he can object. The bond tightens, not with fear, but resolve. Outside, clouds gather low, bruised purple, promising that night will not be kind to the unprepared. The caravan moves like a slow heartbeat through. The pass, lanterns hooded, wheels creaking. Kale rides ahead, senses stretched, while Elowen guards the rear, counting breaths, listening to stone and wind. She tastes copper on the air, too many wolves, too close. The first arrow thuds into a crate, splintering wood. Chaos erupts. Elowen reacts, power threading her limbs with speed and balance she once only dreamed of. She deflects a blade, shoves a driver clear, yanks a lantern free, and hurls it, fire blooming against rock. Kale's commands cut through panic, sharp and clean. They fight in pieces, never far, the bond guiding them like a compass. Elowen takes a hit meant for him, pain flaring bright, then fading under adrenaline. The attackers retreat, not broken, but measured, as if counting responses. When silence returns, 2 guards lie wounded but alive, supplies intact. Elowen's hands shake as she breathes through the aftermath. Kale meets her gaze, something unspoken passing between them. This wasn't survival. It was a message answered. Back at Blackridge, the pack's reaction shifts palpably. Gratitude warms suspicion's edges. Children peer from doorways, curiosity bright. Warriors nod, brief but genuine. The elders grant a concession framed as caution. Elowen may train openly with Kale, no longer confined. It's not trust, but it's movement. Training intensifies. Kale pushes her limits, teaching footwork, angles, restraint under pressure. Elowen challenges his assumptions, finds gaps, learns when to yield and when to strike. They argue. They adapt. The bond evolves, no longer a raw pull, but a shared rhythm, steady and dangerous. One evening, exhaustion strips pretense away. Kale admits the pack will fracture if rivals offer safety in exchange for her surrender. Elowen listens, then says quietly, "Then give them something stronger than fear." He asks what. She answers without hesitation. Hope. The word lands heavy. Hope is harder to defend than walls. That night, Kale dreams of running beside her, not ahead, not behind, and wakes unsettled by how right it feels. The rivals strike again, bolder now, at the river crossing where treaties once held. This time they bring banners and terms. Cale refuses parley without Elowen present. Elders protest. He overrules them. At the river, leaders face off, smiles sharp, eyes calculating. They offer peace if Elowen is delivered, alive, bound, a symbol neutralized. The insult burns. Elowen steps forward before Cole can speak. "You don't fear me," she says evenly. "You fear what changes if I stay." Murmurs ripple. A rival alpha sneers. "You're a mistake." Elowen meets his gaze. "So were you once." The river roars between them, relentless. When talks collapse into violence, it's swift and brutal. Elowen channels power with control that shocks even Cale, disarming without killing, breaking formations, forcing retreat. She stands in the river's edge afterward, soaked and shaking, eyes clear. The rivals withdraw, terms shattered. Blackridge stands. The cost is real, wounds, grief, but the outcome undeniable. Elowen did not break them. She reshaped the field. Chapter 4 closes on a quieter reckoning. By firelight, the elders acknowledge Elowen as Blackridge's bonded protector, a title born of necessity and courage. Cale announces it himself, voice steady. Applause rises, hesitant, then sure. Elowen feels the weight settle, not chains, but responsibility. Later, alone, Cale thanks her without ceremony. She answers with a tired smile. The bond hums, warm and restrained, a promise not yet claimed. Outside, the forest exhales, momentarily eased. But far beyond the river, rivals regroup, wounded pride sharpening intent. Victory has bought time, not peace. As the moon lifts, Elowen understands the next escalation will target not her strength, but her heart. And Cale knows it too, standing beside her, choosing vigilance over rest because hope once sparked must be guarded. With everything they have, the attack comes at night, not with claws or fire, but with whispers that slip through Blackridge like smoke. Elowen feels it first, a subtle unease in the bond, a tightness that has nothing to do with danger and everything to do with memory. By morning, the pack is divided by stories carefully planted. That Elowen's mother once bargained with rival alphas, that her bloodline carries an ancient curse, that the bond itself is a manipulation meant to dethrone Cale. None of it is provable. That is the point. Elowen walks through the keep under the weight of sideways glances and lowered voices, realizing too late that strength does not protect against doubt. Cale hears the rumors and shuts them down where he can, but authority cannot erase fear already rooted. When an elder suggests a temporary separation for stability, Cale explodes, slamming his fist into stone. Elowen watches from the doorway, heart aching. This is the war she feared, the one fought, inside people's minds. The bond hums uneasily, echoing her loneliness. For the first time since the moon bound them, Elowen wonders if staying might destroy Cale more surely than leaving ever could. She makes the decision alone, before dawn, because hesitation would betray them both. Elowen packs lightly, leaving behind the cloak Kyle gave her, folding it with care. She writes no note. Words would soften resolve. The bond flares the moment she steps beyond the outer wards, pain slicing sharp and immediate. Kyle wakes with a gasp, knowing before thought catches up. He finds the empty room, the untouched cloak, the truth slamming into his chest like a blow. Rage follows fear, then understanding so bitter it tastes like ash. Elowen moves fast through the forest, guided by instinct and sorrow, tears blurring the path. She tells herself this is protection, that absence will starve the rumors, that distance will give Blackridge room to heal. Behind her, Cale runs, breaking orders, alpha, authority abandoned for something more dangerous. The forest stretches between them, heavy with mist, as if the world itself is holding its breath to see which choice will break first, duty or devotion. Elowen does not make it far. A rival patrol intercepts her near the ravine, nets weighted with silver snapping tight. Pain explodes, stealing breath and strength. She fights, but exhaustion and surprise steal the edge. They bind her carefully, reverently even, as one would bind something valuable and volatile. Their leader smiles with satisfaction. "You walked into this," he says. Elowen meets his gaze through the haze, defiant despite shaking limbs. "No," she answers. "You followed." They drag her toward the lowlands where treaties mean nothing and mercy is currency. The bond screams, a raw tearing ache that leaves Kale staggering mid-run, fury turning cold and lethal. He does not call the pack. He does not slow. Every instinct narrows to a single point. Elowen alive. Behind him, Blackridge stirs, warriors waking to the truth too late. The internal war has spilled outward, and now blood will answer whispers. The forest bears witness, branches snapping under Call's speed, as the hunt becomes something darker than rescue, a reckoning long delayed. Captivity strips Elowen down to essentials, pain, breath, will. They keep her conscious, testing her control, prodding the bond with silver and taunts. She refuses to give them fear. Instead, she listens, learns routes, counts guards, waits. When they bring Kale up in mockery, she feels his nearness like heat through stone. Hope flares, dangerous and bright. She times her escape to the moment the moon crests, power swelling despite restraints. With a controlled surge, she snaps one cuff, then another, rolling free as chaos erupts. Kale crashes into the camp like a storm given form, precise and devastating. They fight together without words, movements interlocking as if practiced for years. Elowen disarms, Kale strikes, the bond singing fierce approval. When it's done, the camp lies shattered, rivals fleeing into shadow. Kale grips Elowen's shoulders, searching for wounds, hands trembling. "Don't do that again," he says hoarsely. She presses her forehead to his chest, exhausted. "I won't," she answers. "But you have to trust me to stand, not disappear." Chapter 5 ends with consequences acknowledged. Back at Blackridge, Kale convenes the pack, exposing the manipulation, naming the cost of doubt paid in blood and fear. Apologies come, some sincere, some late. Elowen accepts none publicly, choosing action over absolution. She stands beside Kale as he declares a unified front. No more half measures, no more hiding truth to spare comfort. The bond steadies, stronger for having been tested by separation and survival. As night settles, Elowen watches the moon rise without flinching. She understands now, love forged under threat is not fragile, it is sharpened. The next escalation will not be whispers or traps. It will be war, open and merciless. And when it comes, she will not step away to protect Kale. She will stand with him, visible and unyielding because hiding nearly cost them everything. War arrives with the sound of horns echoing across valleys, low and relentless, like a heartbeat turned hostile. Elowen stands on the battlements beside Kale as smoke rises from distant ridges, signaling allied packs answering Blackridge's call. The rumors are gone now, burned away by truth and blood, but unity comes with a price. Expectation. Every eye looks to her, the bonded protector, the spark that lit the fuse. Elowen feels the weight settle, not crushing, but demanding. Kale outlines strategy with ruthless clarity. Hold the gorge, protect the young and wounded, draw the rival alphas into terrain that favors defense. Elders nod, warriors ready weapons, tension crackling like static. Elowen volunteers for the forward line. Kale hesitates, then agrees, jaw tight. "We move together," he says quietly. The bond hums assent. As they descend into the forest, the air thickens with pine sap and iron. Elowen senses enemies before they appear, shadows slipping between trees. The first clash is brutal and fast, blades flashing, bodies colliding. She fights with control, honed by fear and purpose, refusing rage, choosing precision. War is no longer theoretical. It breathes, bleeds, and screams. The battle stretches into hours, then fragments into moments, Commands shouted, hands clasped in passing, the sickening thud of bodies hitting earth. Elowen saves a child pinned under debris, then turns to block a strike aimed at Khal's spine, pain flaring as steel grazes her arm. Khal roars, retaliates, their movements seamless, instinctive. They are no longer reacting. They are shaping the flow, forcing rivals into narrow ground where numbers falter. Yet war adapts. A rival alpha breaks through with a squad, targeting Elowen directly. He taunts her lineage, her bond, promises death dressed as destiny. She answers with silence and speed, disarming him, knocking him into the ravine's edge. He retreats, snarling, wounded pride sharpening resolve. The bond pulses warning, this is not over. When night falls, fighting ebbs into tense standoffs. Fires dot the forest like fallen stars. Elowen cleans her blade, hands steady despite exhaustion. Khal checks her wounds without comment, touch careful. Between them, something solidifies. Not romance, not yet, but an unbreakable trust born of shared danger. At dawn, betrayal strikes again, this time from desperation. A minor allied pack wavers, their alpha offering passage to rivals in exchange for mercy. The breach nearly collapses the flank. Khal responds decisively, cutting off retreat, forcing surrender before slaughter. Elowen stands between factions, voice calm amid chaos. You chose fear, she tells the wavering alpha. Now choose repair. He kneels, broken, offering hostages and maps. The choice spares lives but costs time. Rivals regroup deeper in the lowlands, preparing a final push. The elders argue for retreat. Khal weighs the bond's pull, the map's scars, the cost already paid. Elowen steps close, speaking only to him. End it, she says. Not with annihilation. With truth they can't outrun. He understands. The plan shifts. Draw the rival leaders to the old stone circle under Parley, where ancient laws bind even the ruthless. It's dangerous, risky, and hinges on Elowen standing exposed as proof of good faith. She accepts, without hesitation. The bond steadies, fierce and clear. This war will be decided by who dares to stand visible first. The stone circle hums with old power, moonlight threading carvings worn smooth by centuries. Rival alphas arrive wary, armed, eyes sharp. Elowen stands at the center, unbound, Khal at her side, pack leaders forming a ring. She speaks plainly, of manipulation, of bloodlines, twisted by fear of a bond that did not steal power, but revealed it. Some scoff, others listen. A rival alpha lunges, breaking law. The circle answers with force, throwing him back, breathless and stunned. Gasps, ripple. Elowen does not move. This ends now, she says. You can keep chasing ghosts, or you can build something that doesn't require our children to bleed. Silence stretches. One by one, blades lower. Not all. Enough. Terms are struck. Territory redrawn. Reparations named, watchers assigned. It is not peace. It is pause. As leaders disperse, Khal exhales a breath he's been holding since the moon bound them. Elowen's knees tremble only after, when danger finally loosens its grip. Chapter 6 closes with aftermath and choice. Blackridge tends its wounded under soft rain, grief and relief intermingled. Elowen sits beside Khal on the battlements, sharing bread and quiet. He thanks her, not as alpha, but as the man who nearly lost everything to pride and fear. She admits she was afraid to stay, afraid to matter. The bond hums, gentle now, no longer a command but a promise. Below, the forest breathes easier, scars fresh, but healing begun. Far away, some rivals nurse grudges that will not die quietly. But tonight, the war has bent, if not broken. Elowen looks to the horizon, understanding that leadership means standing where arrows fly and hope feels thin. Khal reaches for her hand, tentative, asking without words. She takes it. The moon watches, impartial and bright, as two enemies who survived war together choose to walk forward, knowing the final test will not be fought with blades alone, but with hearts brave enough to claim what they have become. peace proves louder than war. With the rival leaders withdrawn, Blackridge fills with voices. Arguments over borders, ration counts, who owes whom for blood spilled. Elowen feels the strain immediately, a buzzing under the bond that has nothing to do with danger and everything to do with expectation. She trains by day, counsels by night, learning that leadership means listening to fear without letting it steer. Kyle supports her openly now, but not blindly. He challenges her when she overreaches, praises when she chooses patience over force. The pack watches every exchange, measuring the shape of power between them. Children follow Elowen through the keep, asking questions about the moon and courage. She answers honestly, careful not to mythologize survival. At dusk, an elder approaches with a proposal wrapped as tradition, a ceremonial claiming to stabilize the bond. Elowen hears the subtext, ownership. Cale refuses before she can speak, but Elowen raises a hand. "We'll decide together," she says, voice calm. The elder bristles, the bond steadies. Later, alone, Elowen admits the ceremony frightens her. Not the closeness, but the loss of choice. Cale promises nothing will be done without her consent. Trust grows, fragile but real. Trouble returns wearing a friendly face. Envoys arrive from the lowlands with gifts and apologies, offering trade and shared patrols. Cale suspects a ploy. Elowen senses something subtler, desperation. She attends the feast anyway, choosing visibility over avoidance. Music fills the hall, laughter too loud, wine flowing. Halfway through, Elowen feels it, a prickling warning as her cup touches her lips. She sets it down untouched. Moments later, an envoy collapses, convulsing. Panic erupts. Accusations fly toward Elowen like knives. Cale steps between her and the crowd, voice cutting through chaos. Enough. Elowen kneels beside the fallen envoy, smelling bitter almond on his breath, poison meant to frame. She acts fast, using controlled power to slow his heart, purge the toxin. He lives. The truth surfaces under pressure. A rival faction within the envoys plan the spectacle to reignite war. The pack's anger turns outward. Elowen rises, steady despite shaking hands. This is why we hide, she says. We confront lies with light. Applause follows, hesitant then sure. Kyle watches her with something like awe, realizing leadership suits her more naturally than any title. That night, vulnerability cracks open. Elowen's control falters as the moon crests full, the bond swelling with heat and ache. She retreats to the training yard. Breath ragged, palms pressed to cool stone. Cale finds her there, worry sharp. She admits the truth she's been avoiding. The bond is deepening, not consuming, but demanding acknowledgement. Denial is becoming pain. Cale listens, then shares his fear, that claiming her publicly will paint a target on her back forever. Elowen counters softly, "I already have one." Silence stretches. When he reaches for her, it's careful. Asking, she nods. The bond flares, not wild, but warm, like a hearth lit after long cold. They stop short of ceremony, choosing honesty over spectacle. The moment is intimate, grounding, leaving them both shaken and steadier. Outside the walls, watchers take notes. Inside, a line is crossed, not into ownership, but into partnership. They sleep little, holding space rather than bodies, learning that closeness can be chosen without surrender. Morning brings consequence. A faction of elders pushes back, citing law and fear. Kyle refuses to yield authority. Elowen proposes a council of packs, shared governance for disputed lands, a radical shift. Debate rages. Some accuse her of overreach. She counters with maps, numbers, lived cost. The vote is narrow but passes. Change begins, slow and contentious. Training shifts toward cooperation drills. Patrols mix colors once sworn enemies. It's messy, it works. When a skirmish nearly reignites at the border, Elowen rides out alone to speak, unarmed. Cale follows at a distance, respecting her choice while guarding it. Words diffuse what blades could not. The bond hums pride. Blackridge exhales again, tension easing by degrees. Elowen realizes courage now means restraint as often as action. Chaol learns to trust her judgment even when it terrifies him. Together, they rewrite what strength looks like, one decision at a time. Chapter 7 ends with a quiet promise under stars. Elowen stands on the battlements, cloak snapping in the wind, feeling the bond settle into something sustainable and fierce. Kyle joins her, shoulder to shoulder. They speak of futures without pretending certainty, of children growing without drills, of borders guarded by agreement, not graves. Below, fires burn steady, not frantic. Beyond, the world watches, waiting for failure. Elowen understands the final test won't be an enemy's blade, but the patience to keep choosing transparency when fear offers shortcuts. Kyle squeezes her hand once, grounding. The moon rises, not commanding, merely observing. Enemies turned, allies turned something more. They hold the line together, knowing love here is not escape but responsibility, and that accepting it fully will demand the hardest courage yet. The warning comes as a tremor through the bond, a sudden hollowing that steals Elowen's breath while she's mid-counsel, fingers tracing routes on a map. Chaol feels it too, straightening as if struck. Scouts burst in with ash-streaked faces. The lowlands burn, not from invasion but sabotage. Coordinated strikes meant to starve winter stores and fracture fragile alliances. Panic ripples. Elowen stands, voice steady despite the thrum in her chest. We split relief and defense, she orders, surprising elders with clarity that cuts through fear. Chaol nods, issuing commands that send riders fanning out. Elowen rides with the relief column, choosing visibility again, choosing risk. Smoke thickens the sky, turning sun to copper. Villages appear wounded, granaries cracked, wells fouled, families huddled. Elowen organizes repairs with ruthless efficiency, assigning guards, rationing honestly, promising return. A child grips her sleeve, asking if the moon will help. Elowen kneels, eye level. It helps when we help each other, she says. The bond steadies, approval quiet and deep. Far away, Chaol senses a trap, closing like a fist, and turns his force toward it, knowing separation now is strategy, not fear. The trap springs at dusk. Elowen's column is ambushed on a narrow causeway, fire leaping from reeds, arrows hissing. She reacts instantly, ordering shields up, retreat measured, not panicked. A rival alpha steps from smoke, smiling. "You should have stayed hidden," he taunts. Elowen meets his gaze, heart hammering, control iron flat by resolve. "You should have learned," she replies, and draws him into the open where his numbers fail. The fight is brutal, compressed, every step a calculation. Elowen takes a glancing blow to the head, stars bursting, but stays upright, anchoring the line with voice and presence. When reinforcements arrive, mixed colors, answering her earlier kindness, the ambushers falter. The alpha retreats, wounded pride screaming. Victory tastes thin, cost litters the ground. Elowen orders immediate aid, hands shaking as adrenaline drains. The bond hums worry, Chaol's concern threading her breath like a lifeline. She sends a runner ahead with truth, not bravado. This war is learning to strike at the soft places. So must they. Night brings reckoning. Chaol finds Elowen at a makeshift infirmary, bandage half wrapped, eyes fierce despite exhaustion. He checks her pupils, fingers gentle. She snaps once, fear surfacing, then steadies, apologizing. He admits the counter-trap worked but revealed a deeper threat, a coalition forming, unified by the idea that Elowen's leadership destabilizes old hierarchies. Not hatred, fear of change. Elowen listens, then surprises him. "Then we stop proving them wrong by winning fights," she says quietly. "We prove them obsolete." Her plan is audacious, a summit at the old crossroads, open to all packs and villages, led jointly, with binding commitments to shared stores and patrols. Chaol worries it paints a target the size of the moon. Elowen nods. Targets are easier to defend when everyone sees them. The bond warms, agreement layered with caution. They send invitations at dawn, knowing refusal will expose bad faith. This is escalation without blood, dangerous, necessary. The summit unfolds under a wide sky, banners fluttering in uneasy truce. Crowds gather, warriors, elders, families, eyes sharp, hearts wary. Elowen steps forward unarmed, voice carrying. She names losses plainly, without flourish, then outlines shared systems, accountability, consequences for sabotage. Murmurs rise. A dissenter shouts accusations, old fears repackaged. Elowen answers with numbers, with faces of those saved, with the child's question about the moon. Kale stands beside her, not overshadowing, lending weight without stealing center. A challenger lunges, breaking truce. Kale moves to intercept, but Elowen raises a hand and the crowd parts as mixed patrols restrain the attacker. Proof made visible. Applause breaks, tentative, then swelling. Agreements are signed, not perfect, but real. Some leaders walk away. Enough stay. The crossroads hum with possibility and threat in equal measure. Elowen exhales, legs trembling only now. Kale grips her hand, grounding, pride fierce and quiet. Chapter 8 closes with a cost paid privately. That night, exhaustion crashes through Elowen's control, the bond flaring painfully as emotions backlog. Kyle stays, steady presence, refusing to fix, choosing to witness. She confesses the weight. Every choice lives in her body now. He admits fear of losing her to duty. They negotiate boundaries like treaties, rest mandated, shared command, no martyrdom disguised as bravery. The bond eases, reshaping around consent. Outside, fires burn orderly, not frantic. Beyond the summit's ring, enemies reassess, plans sharpening for a decisive blow. Elowen senses it, calm, settling like armor. The final confrontation will not be chaos. It will be precision aimed at her heart. She meets Kale's gaze, resolute. When it comes, she says, we stand visible. He nods. The moon rises, not commanding, merely illuminating the road ahead as Chapter 8 ends with hope hardened into strategy and love chosen as a deliberate act, ready for the storm. The final strike comes without warning because true enemies stop announcing themselves. Elowen senses it in the bond as a sudden stillness, like the world inhaling too deeply. She's on the eastern ridge inspecting rebuilt granaries when the ground shudders. Explosions rip through the valley, controlled, deliberate, collapsing bridges and sealing exits. Smoke blooms fast, choking and disorienting. Horns sound too late. This isn't an attack on borders. It's a decapitation. A coalition force surges from hidden paths, bypassing defenses with inside knowledge, bought by fear and ambition. Elowen moves, shouting orders, rerouting civilians, anchoring the chaos with her voice. Through the bond, she feels Kale fighting toward her, fury and terror braided tight. Then it hits, the realization sharp as ice that this strike is designed to split them. A rival alpha steps into view across the smoke, eyes gleaming. End it, he calls. Step aside and we spare your people. Elowen doesn't hesitate. No, she answers, and charges, not reckless, but decisive, drawing their focus, pulling the blade away from those who cannot fight back. The trap tightens. She knows it. She chooses it anyway. They isolate her near the old quarry, stone walls hemming her in. Silver-laced nets fly. She cuts through two. The third tangles her ankle, dragging her down hard. Pain flares. The rival alpha advances, savoring. You could have ruled, he sneers. Instead, you chose to soften us. Elowen pushes up, blood in her mouth, control fraying but intact. I chose to end this, she says, and unleashes power with restraint sharpened to a blade, knocking him back, collapsing ledges, buying seconds. Not enough. A blade pierces her side. Breath stolen, knees buckling. The bond screams. Kale feels it like a hand closing around his heart and breaks through the last line with a roar, cutting down anyone in his path. He reaches her as she falls, catching her before stone does. Time fractures. He presses his forehead to hers, voice shaking with rage and terror. Stay, he begs. Elowen meets his eyes. Pain bright, but resolve brighter. Finish it, she whispers. For everyone. The bond steadies, not fading. Focusing, pouring what remains into him. Cale turns the tide with brutal clarity. He rallies mixed patrols, calls out traitors by name, collapses the coalition's cohesion with truth shouted louder than fear. The rival Alpha rises again, wounded pride screaming, and challenges Cale directly. Their fight is short and savage. Kyle ends it without spectacle, clean and final because mercy, here, would only sow another war. Around them, resistance crumbles as leaders surrender or flee. Bridges are retaken, fires die down. When silence finally lands, it's broken by sobs, not horns. Kyle drops to his knees beside Elowen, hands trembling as he staunches blood, barking for healers. She's conscious, barely, eyes tracking his face. You didn't hide, she murmurs, a ghost of a smile. You stayed visible. He swallows hard. So did you. He lifts her, refusing to set her down, carrying her through the smoke as the pack parts, grief and awe mingling in their stares. The healers work through the night, chanting old words, stitching flesh and fate. Elowen drifts between pain and memory, fires, children's questions, maps, laughter earned. The bond pulses faint but present, a tether not yet cut. Kyle keeps vigil, refusing rest, recounting plans out loud as if anchoring her to the future. Repairs, counsels, winter stores shared. At dawn, her breathing evens. Color returns. Relief breaks him quietly. Elders gather, humbled, acknowledging the cost of hesitation paid in blood. They strip traitors of rank, formalize the shared governance Elowen proposed, binding it with law stronger than custom. Outside, survivors rebuild with fierce gentleness, passing tools hand to hand across old lines. War has ended, not with conquest, but with exposure, lies dragged into light until they wither. Chapter 9 closes with Elowen waking to Cale's voice, hoarse with hope. She grips his hand weakly. Did we end it? She asks. He nods, tears unshed. Yes. She exhales, a sound halfway to laughter, halfway to rest. Through the open window, the valley breathes, scarred, alive. The moon hangs pale in the morning sky, no longer a judge, just a witness. The greatest test has passed, not because they were stronger alone, but because they refused to disappear when fear demanded it. What remains is healing, and a final choice, still waiting to be made when she is strong enough to stand again. Elowen wakes to winter light spilling across the infirmary, pale and patient, the valley quiet in a way that feels earned. Her side aches, breath shallow but steady, and the bond hums low, no longer shouting, simply present. Cale sleeps in the chair beside her, head bowed, fingers knotted together as if prayer finally found a shape. She watches him for a long minute, remembering hatred like an old language she no longer speaks. When she moves, pain flares, but relief outweighs it, because movement means staying. He wakes instantly, fear flashing before joy steadies his face. You did it, he says softly, voice rough. We did, she answers, smiling. Outside, hammers ring and voices rise, rebuilding, beginning before grief fully settles. Elowen understands healing will be chosen daily, not gifted by victory. She closes her eyes briefly, grounding herself in breath, in sound, in the knowledge that she is still here. Cale squeezes her hand once. Promise without pressure. Together they listen to the valley breathe, and it feels like a beginning. Not triumphant, not easy, but real enough to hold. The future waits quietly, asking for courage, patience, and care. She inhales, ready to answer, again and always. Days pass, then weeks, winter tightening its grip, while wounds knit and tempers cool. Elowen trains gently at first, relearning balance, accepting help without surrender. She meets with councils seated on benches beside elders and children alike, flattening hierarchies by presence. Kyle shares command transparently, inviting challenge, correcting course when evidence demands it. The pack resists sometimes, habits stubborn as ice, but consistency thaws more than force. Shared patrols become routine, trade resumes, and winter stores are counted openly. At night, Elowen and Kale talk without maps, naming fears, laughing carefully. They choose intimacy as agreement, not escape, learning where boundaries strengthen trust. The bond settles into a steady current, guiding without pulling. One evening, the elders bring the ceremonial claiming again, quieter now. Elowen considers, then declines the spectacle, offering a public vow instead. She and Kale stand before the pack and promise choice, transparency, and shared consequence. Applause rises, not thunderous, but lasting. Winter stars sharpen overhead as agreement replaces ritual. Elowen feels lighter for it. Power held gently proves durable. The valley notices. Peace imperfect takes root. Careful hands tend it, everyone learns. Slowly, surely, together, the work continues. Through cold mornings and long nights, without fear. Spring approaches reluctantly, ice retreating from river edges as resolve holds. Challenges remain, quieter but persistent, testing patience more than blades. Elowen faces one last reckoning within herself when offered an escape to rule elsewhere. It is tempting, clean, free of ghosts. She weighs it, honestly, then refuses, choosing accountability over comfort. Kale supports the choice without relief or resentment, proud and afraid. They formalize the shared council charter, signing with witnesses from every allied pack. Mechanisms for dissent are written plainly, protections for minorities named. Elowen insists on reviews, on metrics, on stories counted alongside numbers. Change feels bureaucratic and brave. On the ridge where she was first humiliated, a memorial is raised for all lost. No names are erased, including her father's, including rivals. Kale stands with her there, grief acknowledged without dominance. The bond hums softly, content to witness. Wind carries pine and thawed earth. Elowen breathes deeply. She belongs because she chooses to. So does he. Leadership becomes shared labor, not a throne. The valley answers with quiet cooperation. Spring finally breaks through. Water runs free. Healing follows. Slow, real, enough. More will come. They are ready. Together, visibly, without hiding, always choosing, each day, forward. On the anniversary of the battle, the packs gather not for mourning, but renewal. Elowen speaks briefly, refusing grand speeches, naming gratitude instead. Kale follows, acknowledging mistakes openly, modeling repair. Together they unveil a shared standard, colors interwoven. Children run beneath it, laughing. Music rises, food is shared, and the valley feels human again. Elowen dances carefully at first, then freely. Paint a memory, not a limit. Kale joins her without claiming the center, following her lead. They are not crowned, not bound by ritual, but chosen by action. As night deepens, Elowen feels the bond warm, expansive. It is not ownership, it is commitment renewed daily. Later, under stars, Kale asks a simple question. She answers with a yes shaped like laughter. They do not rush promises beyond tomorrow. Tomorrow is enough. Firelight paints their faces gold. The valley hums approval. Peace feels practiced, hard, earned, kept by many hands. Elowen knows stories will be told. She hopes they stay simple. Enemies became allies. Choice mattered. Visibility saved lives. Love required courage. Always. She looks at Kale. He smiles. Enough said. The night holds. Stars witness. History softens. Life continues. Together. Visible. Chosen. Here. Now. Forever learning. Still. Forward. Years later, when children ask how enemies became partners, Elowen answers plainly. We stayed, she says, voice gentle. We listen, Kyle adds, smiling. They point to maps, to rituals reimagined, to scars worn openly. Elowen never centers herself as legend. She names neighbors, healers, dissenters who kept speaking. The bond remains, a quiet river beneath days. It guided them once. Now it witnesses choice. Kyle tends orchards as often as councils, grounding leadership in soil. Elowen writes letters more than orders, keeping doors open. The valley thrives, not perfect, but honest. When storms come, they prepare. Together. The moon still rises, indifferent and bright. It no longer forces their bond. It reflects it. On quiet nights, Elowen and Kyle walk the ridge. They remember humiliation turned resolve, fear turned plan. They hold hands, visible by choice. This is how the story ends. Not with domination, but with dignity shared. Not with silence, but with voices kept. Enemies learned to listen. The moon watched, people chose. That choice endured. Across seasons, across doubt, across fear. Always visible, always together. Still choosing, again and again and again, until it becomes ordinary. And that is victory. At last, here, now, forever, forward, together. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next journey. Share this with someone who loves powerful romance and hard-won hope. Tell us in the comments which moments stayed with you and what you think happens next in this world. Your support helps these stories reach more hearts. Until next time, stay visible, stay brave, and keep choosing forward.